Okay, values and variables in JavaScript. So, a value is any piece of data like a number, string, or a boolean. For example, a number value in JavaScript could be any number that you can think of. In this example, we have 7. A string value is any text, sentence, a word you can think of. In this example, we have hello world. And a boolean value is a value that is either true or false. Okay, so boolean value cannot hold number or a string because it only holds true or false. All right, and we're gonna get into that in a bit. A variable is like a labeled container that stores a value so you can use it later. Now, what does that mean? So imagine you have a box, right? And you put some item in the box. So afterwards, you can use that item, right? So, for example, let's say like headphones, maybe. And you have a special like container for those headphones where you store them. So tomorrow you can get that container and use it. That's how variables work. They act like a labeled container that stores a value so you can use it later. I'm sorry about that. So in JavaScript, we define variables using the let or const keywords. All right. So we have two keywords that define the variables, and these are let and const. Variable names must start only with a letter, underscore, or a $sign, and cannot include any spaces. So imagine you have that headphones box, as we said, and you put your headphones in that container or that box you have, and you name that box something seem like related to the headphone, right? So like a headphone box, for example. So same for variables, you give them names, but these names must only start with a letter, underscore, or a $sign, and cannot include any spaces. Okay, now let's create a variable with a value in JavaScript. So again, as we said, we use two keywords to define a variable. So these are let and const, and I'll show you the difference between let and const. So for now, let's use let. So let's do maybe my name. Maybe let's create a variable, a container that will store my name. All right. So let username, I'm gonna put this username equals to a string value. As we said, we learned 3 values: number, string, and boolean values, right? So let username, a string value must always be with quotes in between the quotes. A text should be in between the quotes for it to be a string value, all right? So in this case, if we want to store my name here, we cannot just go ahead and say Gio, right? Because it's not a string value. Now this program does not know what this is, all right? So string value, quotes, and in between those quotes I can store my name. There we go. Now let's store a number value. Let's use my age. Let user age, same thing I'm gonna do to be more specific. You know, when you store your headphones in the box, you have to name it something related to it, right? To make sense. So user age, now this time I'm gonna use a number value, all right? But keep in mind that if I use a number value, like if I put a number between the quotes like this, it's gonna be a string value and not a number. Just because you have number between the quotes, it's still a string value because you have quotes around it, okay? So 16, there we go. Now let's use a boolean value. I'm gonna create student variable. I'm gonna name this variable student. So let student equals to true. So this is a small information about me, which is holding my name, my age, and if I'm student or not, okay? So as I said, a Boolean value only holds true or false, all right? In this case, I'm gonna put true there. So let's recap. We define a variable with keyword let. We said we have two keywords, let and const. So we define a variable using let. Then we name that variable username. Then we assign it to the value of string. So this variable username now holds the value of string, and that string is this right here. Same here. We define with let. We name it user age, and it holds the value of number, which is 16. Here we define it with let. We use, we name it student, and this variable holds the value of Boolean. Okay. Now we can also do this. For example, let's say const. What can we do? So user birth date, for example, because your birth date is never changing, right? Date. Here, let's put a number. Actually, let's put a string because I'm not gonna jump into periods and all of that stuff. So user birth date is, let's say, for example, something random. So 15 of February maybe, and 2006 maybe. Okay. This is a random string value we put. So now, what's the difference between const and let, right? So this is another way of defining a variable, but there's a difference between const and let, okay? So now, what's the difference between const and let? So const, short for constant, is a variable, is a kind of variable which value cannot be updated afterwards, all right? So what does that mean? Here, the keyword let is used to declare variables that can change their value later. Let is flexible. You can update the value later on. Okay, so what does that mean is I can change the user age to something else, and it's not gonna be equal to 16 anymore. Okay, now how do we do that? Okay, so if we write just the variable name user age below this, because if we do above this, there's no user age variable existing up here, so we have to do it below this variable. Okay, so user age equals to 17, for example. So now this variable is no longer equal to 16 after this line of code, which is line 22 for me, for my case. After line of 22, this variable's value is equal to 17 and not 16 anymore. Okay, now to show you that, we're gonna use this thing called console log, which will log the result in the console here. So if you come over to the index.html, so your web page over here, you right click, you click inspect, as I did, click on that, and here you should be able to see console. I just have it zoomed in. There we go. Right next to the elements tab, you should see console. Go there. And now if I use console here, so console.log, then parentheses, and variable name. Just put the variable name and just save your script.js file. So as you see, it logged the 17. Okay, now if I put that console log, I'm just gonna copy this line and put it here. If I put it above this variable, right, what do you think it's gonna be? It's gonna be 16 because, as I said, after this line of code, the user age equals to 17 and not 16 anymore. So what does that mean is before this line of code, the user age is still equal to 16. Okay? So now if I save the file, you can see that script.js 22, which means the line in script.js file, 22 line, which is console log, it outputs the result of 16. So as I said, before this update of the variable value, the variable value is still equal to 16. But after this line of code, it's going to be equal to 17 because we updated it. So we can also modify the student just by putting the, remember when you update a value, right? When you update a value of the already existing variable, you have to put just a variable name. If you put let here, again, if you do this, it's going to be an error because you have duplicate variables with like duplicate names, which is not allowed in JavaScript. Okay, so you cannot have two variables with the same name. Keep that in mind too. So student equals to false this time, let's say. Okay, I'm going to save my file, right? I'm going to do same thing here. Below this, I'm going to console.log the student. And below this, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to copy and paste. There we go. I'm going to save my script.js file. And as you see, before this line of code, where we updated the value of student, the student equals to true. You see over here, script.js line 23. It equals to true. But after line of code 26, we updated the value and we used console log to log the variable into the console again, and it outputs false. So now, what's the difference between let and const? Okay, so as I said, const short for constant. Okay, const short for constant is like a variable which value cannot be modified at all. Okay, so we cannot update the const variable. So let me just show you what's gonna happen if you ever try to just update the value of const variable. So again, if I use just variable name here, user birth date equals to maybe just like 7, right? Now if I save my file over here, save, there we go, we got an error. On call type error, assignment to this line constant variable. See, on the line of 27, we're trying to assign a constant variable, which is an error. As I said, you cannot update the value of a constant variable. Okay, so now to be like, if we think correctly, over here username should be a constant value. Now why? Because your name is never gonna change, right? Your name is gonna stay the same forever. So instead of using let here, I'm gonna use const. And now my username variable is defined with const and its value cannot be modified. Okay. So, however, your age always changes every year, right? So it should be let. If you're a student or not, it should be let because one day you're not gonna be student anymore, and this gonna be equal to false as we did it here. Okay, we updated the value. So, however, your user birth date is gonna stay the same forever, right? So this value is never gonna be modified. Great. So now, Those are values and variables in JavaScript.